creature tall and dark who comes out at night and preys on fearful children. The story is a classic tale, one that every kid and their neighbor like to scare each other with during sleepovers. People have come up with several different versions of the story, like how the boogeyman only comes out during the full moon, how it can transform itself into your greatest fears, or how it lives under your bed and waits for the right moment, right when you are most vulnerable, and snatches you. But I know the truth. There's no such thing as the boogeyman. No, there's only something far different. Something that strays from the legends. Something that you wouldn't expect. How do I know this? You might ask. It's because I saw the thing with my very eyes. I was 11 years old when it happened. I lived in a relative quiet home in the suburbs with my mother and father. Being an only child, I had the privilege of getting everything I asked for. I had a large bedroom all to myself, filled with a vast assortment of toys and video games. I admit I was quite the spoiled kid. As the weeks went by and storage space in my room slowly decreased, my parents decided it was time I got somewhere to store all my junk that wasn't on the floor. So a few weeks prior to when it happened, they had found an old second-hand closet and decided it would fit nicely into my room. As the 11-year-old I was, I didn't have much of an opinion on the closet and let my parents place it and clean up how they wanted. Several days passed by without anything abnormal happening. I saw my friends from time to time and otherwise occupied myself playing games. Days turned into weeks and soon enough the closet was cluttered with my crap. Dust and cobwebs collected at the top. Bite marks framed the door, and part of the corner had been chipped off due to my friends being a little too careless when roughhousing. If the second-hand closet looked old before, it aged quite rapidly after spending a few weeks in my bedroom. Thinking back, there was something about the closet that had always felt a little off. It was like I got this bad feeling, shivers every time I got close to it. As the kid I was, I took a little to no notice of this and brushed it off as nothing. The night it happened, I had been playing with my favorite stuffies, making them play fight each other. My playtime was interrupted by my mother entering the room and telling me it was time for bed. I reluctantly put my stuffies away in the closet and crawled into bed. My mother tucked me in, peppered a few kisses on my cheek, and closed the lights as she left my room. I knew that I should have gone to sleep, but at that time I just couldn't. I tried, I really did, but I had too much pent-up energy. I wanted to keep playing with my stuffies, not sleep. Surely 10 more minutes wouldn't hurt, I had thought to myself. I rolled over and watched the door for a few moments until I saw the light from around the border flick off. I sat up and instantly got to work, opening my nightlight, then pattered towards the old closet. In the dim light, the closet felt like it was towering over my little body. I never really realized how tall it was until then. I felt myself shivering as I neared a piece of furniture, which I found odd because I didn't feel cold at all. Dismissing this, I reached up and opened the door as silently as I could as to not alert my parents and looked in. Toys and cards and board games were scattered messily along the closet ground. Unable to really see, I reached in blindly, attempting to find my favorite stuffy, but to no avail. Frowning, I leaned my body forward when suddenly I felt myself tumbling forward and right into the mess, the door behind me croaking loudly as I did so. I fumbled for a few moments to catch my footing, but found it was impossible to stand up with all the clutter around me. I scrambled forwards to try to find the walls of the closet so I could support myself, but I couldn't seem to find it, no matter how far out I reached. Instead, I stumbled over myself once more and felt my body drop. My panic rose in my chest as I scurried backwards and finally felt myself push on the open closet door and topple out. I sat there on the floor, breathing heavily while allowing myself to calm down. It took a moment, but as my eyes adjusted to my surroundings, I quickly realized that I wasn't in my room anymore. I knew this because I could see the faint outlines of the walls, and compared to my large spacey room, this place was tiny. Only that, but I could feel something soft and woven underneath where I sat, which was a contrast from the hard, cold floors of my own room. I stood and pattered forwards cautiously until I head into something large and stiff. I wasn't sure what exactly I had bumped into, but before I had the chance to reach out and touch it, I heard a quiet click. The light had been turned on, causing me to hiss and squint my eyes in order to adjust from the darkness. I opened up my eyes and was finally able to see my surroundings. I was in a bedroom of sorts. It was small and painted a light pink color and was adorned with several. A high-pitched sound coming from behind me interrupted my thoughts. I froze in an instant. There was something else here. I wasn't alone. Swallowed and turned around. Before me at a little distance stood the form of a being I had only heard about in the night terrors. Its skin was pale and withered with splotches of deep red stains underneath its wide, beady eyes. Its head was abnormally round, and long disheveled strands of hair matted its face. Two oval-shaped balls stood out from either side of its face, partially hidden by strands of hair, but still very much visible. Perhaps the most disturbing feature on its face being the word placed right in the center that oozed clear liquid out of one of its holes. Its physique, on the other hand, stood quite short in this stature. Its body was oddly symmetrical and proportionate, with bones barely visible through skin due to excess flesh and meat on the creature's body. Its slender limbs curled in on themselves, and its paws protruded short, round claws at its tips. A fresh wave of fear consumed my being as I locked eyes with the monster, who stood as still as I was. I couldn't move an inch of my body, motor functions freezing as if they had lost all responses. But then, without warning, it started moving slowly towards me. It was quivering, twitching. It moved its limbs in a tentative way, one short appendage stretching itself in front of the other. It stopped quickly and suddenly. I could see the figure's thin torso breathing in and out at an irregular pace. Breath coming in, nothing more than a series of horrifying wheezes. My heart skipped a beat and I shook in my spot. My own breath labored. My panic stared into the creature's dark eyes and swallowed, thicker this time, forcing back a ball of anticipation that stuck with it. Any moment now, any sudden movement, and this thing could jump at me, and that would be it. I shifted my eyes around the room, but there was so little space and nowhere to run. The only exit was being blocked off by the monster. But then something strange happened. The creature backed away and started to make noises. Croaks and cranks and strange sounds came out of the thing's mouth, its facial expressions morphing as it mumbled, its eyes leaking some kind of clear liquid. Was it trying to say something? Or was it trying to threaten me? It had to be. There was no other fact, but its voice. Its voice sounded minuscule. It was, as frightened as it was. Surely it wasn't trying to talk to me. I stared at the creature. My thought process told me that maybe I could try to communicate with it, long enough to stall it and run until I could make it back to safety. And so I allowed a simple, cautious word to escape my lips and interject the creature's incoherent sounds. Hello? And then there was silence. The creature stiffed at my words, wide eyes becoming impossible, wider and pink mouth dropping down into what I recognized as an expression of shock. I thought for a moment that maybe it understood me, until an ear-piercing wail erupted from the monster. The creature threw its head back and shrieked a terrible sound that I had never heard in my life, being nothing short of purely animalistic. In my frozen state, I could see a light begin to illuminate from the small crack of the door, and series of heavy banging sounds that came closer and closer to the room, getting louder as they did so. That's when I realized what was happening. It was calling its sisters. Realization dawned fast as the panic rose in my chest. The only thoughts going through my head at that moment was that if I didn't get out now, surely I was going to die. I was going to die without my family ever knowing where I went or what happened to me. Banging noises got closer and I could begin to hear the sound of the other creatures getting closer. Their voices were deeper and less shrill than that of the thing in front of him, but caused shivers in my bones anyway. I had to get out, but how? I looked behind the creature, and sure enough, an exact replica of my closet stood up against pink walls. Adrenaline shot through me, and I suddenly regained control of my legs and made a dash for it, clumsily avoiding the creature as I bolted past it and straight to the familiarity of the wooden closet.